Welcome to the Midwest Blitz. It's college football comfort food for the Midwest soul. Now, here are your hosts, Coach Drew and Big Nick.
Welcome to the Midwest Blitz. It's now conference championship weekend. We've made it. We made it through week 14. Let's get a yup.
Yeah, yup. Coach Drew, I can't believe we're all the way through the regular season, and holy crap, we got new college football playoff rankings tonight. The only thing that matters about college football playoff rankings tonight, not a lot changed, is we're going to explain to you, once we tell you about the conference championship games, how a G5 team might get in, two G5 teams might get in, no ACC teams might get on. We're about to talk about it here in a second, Coach Drew.
Absolutely. So what we got cooking down over here at the CFP, we recorded this on a Tuesday, so everything's pretty much fresh. If anything changes as far as like head coaches getting fired or moving around, we'll update you as we go live, because there's been some announcements. We've been making a lot of adjustments and notes to our podcast ready for today. But one of the things that we want to point out, some games that do matter. Texas Tech is playing BYU. They got BYU sitting at 11. We also are going to talk about how Alabama and Georgia play each other and how there's a possibility for Alabama to get knocked out. Isn't that right, Nick?
Yeah, Alabama sits right now at the cut line at 10. If Alabama loses, that knocks them down off the pedestal at 10, which is above the cut line. And then that opens up a third spot for an ACC team, an American Conference team, a Sun Belt team, or maybe the Miami Hurricanes to jump in there as in that large bid. So Miami is definitely rooting against Bama, against Georgia on Saturday. It's very interesting. This field is really far from settled, if you guys haven't been paying attention.
There is a doomsday scenario where an ACC champion does not get in, but an at-large Miami does. And we're going to break that down for you. So one of the things that we do want to mention before we get into our main games, one of those teams is now on there. We've been tracking them. They finally got in there. James Madison is sitting at 25. They're a 3-touchdown dog against Troy on Friday, right? We're just going to talk about this briefly here before we get into our Big Ten game. If they do win, and one of the Tulane and North Texas wins, and Duke wins, there might be two G5 teams that get in. Nick, take it away.
Yeah, James Madison's I think it opened at a 21.5 point favorite. They're a 3-touchdown favorite against Troy, the Troy Trojans, here on Saturday. So we expect them to win. They're now ranked 25th. And then in the American Conference in the G5, you have Tulane playing North Texas. So what you have there is you got a half and half measurement between three teams, which doesn't make a lot of math sense, but just listen to me here for a second. In the ACC, you got Virginia ranked 18th, I believe, or maybe 17th now. If Virginia beats Duke, Duke has 5 losses on the season. If Duke beats Virginia, there will not be an ACC team in this field. And if somebody watches this and wants to question it, send us a comment, and then we'll get back to you, and then you can owe us a beer afterward, because this is facts. Duke with 5 losses will not get let in if they win the ACC championship game. So that will open the door for one of the American Conference or Sun Belt teams, JMU or the winner of Tulane versus North Texas, who are ranked, as Drew just said, to be open to have a spot. At least one of those G5 teams is going to get a spot. But if Duke beats Virginia in the ACC Conference Championship game and Alabama loses, I'm looking at the big board here in my kitchen office, and Alabama loses, that's 3 spots below number 9 Notre Dame that will be open. So you could potentially end up with an ACC team, an American Conference team, Tulane and North Texas, and a Sun Belt team, which would be the JMU Dukes, all there at the bottom at 10, 11, 12. We don't know how they'll seed them, but there's a lot of action that could happen this weekend, including movement at the top of the top 12 of the college football playoff, where Indiana number 1 plays Ohio State number 2. Me and Drew assume that the loser of that game won't drop any lower than 4th unless it's a big time blowout, which we don't expect. If you haven't seen the Hoosiers, they are their deck is stacked correctly, as we're about to talk about with the Big Ten championship game, to give the Buckeyes a hell of a game and maybe beat them. Texas A&M just lost to Texas, so Georgia's ranked number 3rd now. Coach Drew, there's so much movement that can happen here, especially at the bottom of the playoff bracket. It's pretty exciting.
There is. Tulane's the one that's sitting the nicest as 20 as the non-P4 conference leaders. Another note, as we mentioned before, I just want to make sure we clarify it before we get to Indiana versus Ohio State. I want to get there as soon as possible. It's an exciting game. We got BYU at 11. Now, Miami's at 12. They talked about the cut line being 10. That's sitting at Notre Dame. They are not playing this weekend. Texas is 13. So it looks like Miami will get that first shot in if Alabama loses, which we're going to cover. Then you have Vanderbilt behind Texas. So Vanderbilt's not getting in. They're basically eliminated. Playoff hopes decimated. Then you get to 15, which is Utah. Again, Utah basically decimated because BYU or Texas Tech would get in before them with those 2 losses. We talk about rewarding or not rewarding people for participating in conference championships. And then after that, it gets pretty muddy. We already know where everything's at. We talked about Tulane. Last note, Virginia is 17 for the ACC. They will get an automatic bid, the highest jump you will see, besides Tulane or James Madison, depending on how that fickles down there. But Virginia sitting at 17 would be the highest jump if they do succeed and beat Duke. All right, now everything's laid out. We got the pieces laid out. We got the game set up. We talked about game theory. All right, Nick, this is the one we've been waiting for since you're a wee lad. Go ahead and take it away.
Yes, sir. This is the game of the year, Clash of the Titans. Number 1 undefeated Ohio State, the Ohio State University, versus the Indiana Hoosiers, who are ranked number 2 in the country. Indiana Hoosiers plus 5.5. This will be at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Fox. So the moment in this game, Coach Drew, favors Indiana. It's their time to shine. They've never been here. By never, I mean literally never. But history favors the Buckeyes. Now, this is not a game, as I would always tell you here on the Midwest Blitz, the games aren't played by the ghosts of the past. Archie Griffin is not going to be here, 2-time Heisman winner. Antoine Randall, my favorite Hoosier, will not be here. Who is going to be here is Ryan Day and Curt Cignetti, maybe the 2 best coaches in the country. And as an Indiana fan, and as much as I love Coach Cignetti, I really think Ryan Day probably is the most proven and best coach, best program runner in the country. That's not a shot at my Hoosiers. It's not a shot at Cignetti, but it's just facts. So as an Indiana fan, I want to come into this and say, I think we're going to outcoach him. I think that our athletes that may not be quite as big, quite as strong, quite as fast are going to create turnovers, are going to create scenarios to help Indiana win this game. Now, I'm not saying Indiana's going to lose the game, Coach Drew, but these are the actual keys of the game. Indiana needs to crush Ohio State's running game early in the game. This needs to be something the Hoosiers do to win, because if they don't, and look, if there's a weakness in the Ohio State offense, it is the running game. That's been the most inconsistent part. I know Ohio State fans are going to yell at me. They're going to tell me that the other Bo Jackson is the truth. He is him and all this stuff. Maybe he is. C.J. Donaldson is the back that I really like for the Buckeyes. In between the tackles, goal line, short yardage, is a really terrific back. I love a lot of these players for Ohio State, so I'm not really picking sides here. If Indiana cannot stonewall the Ohio State running game in critical situations, especially on first down, Indiana's probably toast. Because if you let Julian Sayin and Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, the most underrated player in college football that I've been saying all season long is Carnell Tate, the most underrated player. If you let them operate in second and medium, third and short, it's going to make it really hard on the Hoosiers defense to hold them down. If you look at Pro Football Focus, Coach Drew, as we go into this, or any advanced metrics, these teams are basically identical. So I'm not saying that Indiana can't keep up with them, but I'm just painting a picture of you of how this game's going to go and what has to happen for either team to win. Ohio State on defense has to stop Indiana's RPO game. Now, a lot of people, especially one guy you sent me a video of, I'm not throwing any shade at you, Coach Drew, but a lot of people look at what Cignetti and offensive coordinator Shanahan do for Indiana and what Mendoza does at quarterback with the RPO game, and they think that it's like cheating, like anybody could sit back here and run these RPOs that Indiana runs. That is not factual. If you don't understand that, I don't blame you. But if you don't understand it the way I do, then you just haven't studied it as closely as I have. What Indiana does is just try to put you in conflict. And if you've heard this phrase, in conflict, so when Cignetti calls a running play, sometimes he adds what he calls an RPO tag. And the tag just means if the defense lines up wrong, Pat Coogan, the center, Mendoza at quarterback, and the wide receiver who's in a certain spot all have to recognize this issue, and that allows Mendoza to pull the ball and get it to a receiver, which then, if you do this effectively throughout the course of a game, slows the defense of the other team down from being able to stop the running game, because now they're like, oh, we're afraid to line up the way we wanted to line up. If that doesn't make sense, sorry I can't help you on audio only, but Ohio State has to figure out a way to line up in a way that is fundamentally sound to slow down the RPO game and stop the run at the same time, which is tricky against the Hoosiers. And I guarantee you the Hoosiers have some tricks up their sleeves. Ohio State has to do this to limit Mendoza's options. Mendoza is not a one-trick pony. He's not Arch Manning at Texas throwing a bubble screen behind the line of scrimmage to Trey Wingo that ends up being a 65-yard touchdown, and then they call it a 65-yard completion. Mendoza can challenge you over the middle of the field, which is what professional quarterbacks do. That's why scouts love him. He can do it. He has the accuracy. Ohio State has to match and slow down the RPO game from Indiana to limit Mendoza's options. And then Indiana has to match up with the superstar wide receivers from Ohio State. One of my favorite players from Indiana, if not my favorite, is D'Angelo Ponce, who stands 5'9", but he's a badass man. He plays bigger than they say he is. And I heard somebody reference this in a demeaning fashion earlier, and I'm certainly not doing that. Coach Drew, do you remember what they said? It's okay if you don't, you can just say no. But what did D'Angelo Ponce say when they asked him at Big Ten Media Day what it was like to cover bigger wide receivers? Do you remember?
I don't recall.
He said, the bigger they are, the bigger target I have to hit them. D'Angelo Ponce is not scared. D'Angelo Ponce is ready to solidify himself as a first, second-round draft pick. And what better way than to be able to match up with Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith in this game? Is he going to go one-on-one the whole game and shut him down the whole game? Probably not. Indiana, in fact, throughout the season, this is why I think that Ohio State has a better defense than Indiana does, not by miles, but by inches, is that Indiana has given up a chunk play in the passing game or run game at least once a game against quality opponents this year. But Ponce is going to give you problems, and Indiana is going to disguise things against super freshman, Super Saiyan, Julian Saiyan for Ohio State. There's going to be a lot of curveballs thrown at this Ohio State offense from the Indiana defense. This isn't like a 1 + 1 = 2 type of game. There's going to be misdirection. There's going to be a lot of strategy that comes into play. I could see some ebbs and flows, but I see this being a one-score game, Coach Drew. I think that Indiana has the best quarterback in the country right now, and I know Ohio State fans might disagree with me. What did Julian Saiyan do in the first quarter against Michigan last week? He threw one pick. He threw another ball against an obvious cover 2 look right to a defender that dropped it for Michigan. I think quarterback favors Indiana in this game. I think that athletic talent favors Ohio State, but I think line of scrimmage play slightly favors Indiana. And that's more so Indiana's front seven against Ohio State's offensive line. But like I said, down and distance situations is what's going to dictate this game. I think early downs are going to dictate, especially for Indiana's defense against Ohio State. If you let Ohio State's offense operate in second medium, third and short, your secondary's toast. You've got to pressure at the line of scrimmage on first down, both against pass and run, which Indiana is the best team in the country at doing this year. That being said, Kenyatta Jackson and some of those Arvell Reese, big game Arvell Reese, one of my favorite linebackers in the country. Oh my gosh, the Downs brothers for Ohio State. This game is the game of the year without an absolute doubt. If you've been watching SEC ESPN, they might be telling you something different. This is the two best teams statistically and by performance, by game domination, by, either being ahead. Ohio State has been ahead and had like more game control in terms of that statistic. But Indiana has played more tough road games and has come from behind. So I give Indiana the edge. I think the Hoosiers win by about a field goal in this game. just because they've been through more adversity. They have a more veteran quarterback. Nothing against the skill players or anybody from Ohio State. This is going to be an absolute hell of a game, Coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start there. Actually, you brought up a good point about adversity and different things that has happened. One of the things that's going to be a definite question for the Ohio State Buckeyes, can freshman Super Saiyan go Saiyan mode? That's one of the things, Super Saiyan mode. We need to see him do way better than he started off against Michigan. Another thing, too, is Tate and Smith are both back. Both dogs, both going to be first-round draft picks in their respective draft classes. He has the talent around him. Now, here's the thing. They had more to lose against Michigan at the Big House last week than Indiana did at Purdue. Cignetti did have a lot more better film from last week than Indiana just dog-walking Purdue like nothing. Yeah, Indiana didn't start off 21 points in like 2 seconds as we all expected, but at the end of the game, it was almost 100-2. So, hey, as long as you get there, it's not how you start, it's how you finish, right? We hear that all the time in sports.
No doubt.
But again, going to this, what are they going to do? So, Indianapolis is close to Bloomington. I don't know if you guys know this. This place is going to be rocking. Me and Big Nick are going to be downtown area-ish, and we're going to be covering this game, Rate Game Live.
We're in the
we might
war
go live
room
on TikTok. Yep, it's a non-gambling app. It's a social app. You get to rate the game. This game's going to start off again. I'm putting it right there where I gave on the Rate Game app. A 9.5. It can only get higher. Where we started from this conversation, you said it. You said it best. They're 1 versus 2. We're not the SEC. That's why you guys come to us. If this was the SEC, you would be literally turning on and it'd be like every 2 seconds. The 1 versus 2. The 1 versus 2. No one's taking Indiana serious. Cignetti has took over this program. What many have tried to do in the college football video game, he did in real life, ladies and gentlemen. Do you know how hard it was to take over Indiana in the college football game last year before the updates? I want you to go rent that game, find out, re-download it, do whatever the hell you need to do, and try to do what Cignetti did, and try to get to the college football playoffs. Hell, I'm not even telling you to win a game that far. I just want you to go through the struggle. He then comes in his second year, goes 12-0, wins big games against Dan Lanning at Oregon. Stop it. These guys got to understand this is the hardest challenge. Now, I'm going to say this in the politest way I can. We did compare this last week with Ohio State and Michigan. This isn't Michigan last year where they had multiple first rounds on the D-line. Michigan, you had a great season. Ohio State's just better. Plain and simple. That's why they're the number 1 team in the whole college football playoffs. Let's look at it from this perspective here. When was their last hard opponent that played a really good defense like Indiana? This is a good question we have to ask ourselves. It hasn't happened since week 1 against Texas. Who had more to lose last week? Ohio State, not Michigan.
I think, Coach Drew, you just harped on something that I thought about that I didn't bring up, so I appreciate that, is that traditionally fans that haven't watched Indiana much and maybe haven't watched Ohio State because they've just been beating the crap out of everybody, you don't realize Indiana's secondary is nothing to fuck with by any stretch. Amari Farrell's all Big Ten. I expect Louis Moore to be all Big Ten. I expect both of those guys to at least get a tryout in training camp, which compared to Caleb Downs is like, oh, shoot, Indiana's not talented. D'Angelo Pons is a legit NFL cornerback. He will be starting for somebody on Sundays. The depth that Indiana has on defense, in addition to the execution, is so much better than what Michigan had to offer against Ohio State. And Michigan played a good game against Ohio State, so this isn't a piss on Michigan moment. Indiana's secondary, it's hard for me to say this, Coach Drew, as an Indiana fan. Indiana's secondary is way, way better than Michigan's right now. So this is not going to be like last week where Ohio State just breaks it open in the second half and just starts, popping you on deep passes, beating you over the top, bullying you with physicality. I think this is going to be the ultimate chess match between Ryan Day, Curt Cignetti, and their respective staffs who are the most elite in college football. I was going to say that defensive coordinator Bryant Haynes for Indiana could win the Art Briles Award for the best assistant coach in college football, except Ohio State's defensive coordinator, Coach Drew's doppelganger, Matt Patricia, I think he probably deserves it. There is no defensive coordinator in the country that's done a better job than Matt Patricia. And I say this as an Indiana fan, the dude comes in with one spring ball session, replacing 8 NFL draft picks off the defense, and comes in, has the statistically and deserving best defense in the country, slightly ahead of Indiana's by every measurement. I think Matt Patricia deserves the Bryles Award. Whether they give it to him or not, I don't know. Kurt Cignetti's going to win Coach of the Year again, Coach Drew. He'll be unanimous National Coach of the Year, I believe, and I think he deserves that also. The main reason that he's going to get it, Coach Drew, is that the rest of the country just can't figure out how the hell Indiana went 12-0. Just like they can't figure out how Vanderbilt did as well as they did. I mean, it's not that math isn't mathin'. It's just that other people haven't figured out how the math works yet. And you're the math guy here on the Blitz. So you wrap that up for me so I don't sound dumb.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Let's talk some math. So we're going to talk hash marks. We're going to actually measure the field in the NFL compared to the college football. In previous discussion, when me and Nick were breaking down film, we were talking about how the RPO does translate to the NFL. Now, many people think that Heisman Doza, I'm going to say it, the Heisman winner, more than likely. I love Jeremiah Love. I'm wearing my Notre Dame hat, but you know what? I support Big Nick and his endeavors. I think it'd be awesome to get an Indiana guy in there. I love both guys, respectively. Now, back to my point. So the hash marks are a little bit different. Matt Patricia showed Arch Manning, who he is still a Manning. He did figure it out. He did pick Texas A&M. But Arch Manning grew up with Manning. Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, they went against Matt Patricia in real life. He disguised some defensive guys that would come in, act like they're going to blitz. They drop back in coverage. They destroyed Arch Manning in week 1. Now, Arch Manning's still young, hasn't a lot of guys starts. Mendoza is a veteran. Now, how do you handle that? Okay, Matt Patricia passed the test last week. Bryce Underwood is not doing that great. Getting back to the math question about what's going on here, can the RPO system that Heisman Mendoza is going to use can go against NFL-style Matt Patricia's defense? Will we see it? How does it work at the college level versus the NFL? We actually get to test out a theory that
Yeah, 100%.
if something happens to Bo Jackson or Bo Jackson needs a break, can people come in and start hurdling over people? How does that play at X Factor? One of the other things, too, is, okay, again, you guys got to understand, Pond is going to be a first-round draft pick cornerback. So you got a first-round cornerback going against a first round. This is like an NFL combine, but in an actual game. There's going to be scouts here. Big Ten is going to be at Lucas Oil Stadium. For many of you that don't or aren't aware, Indianapolis hosts the NFL Combine. These scouts have the GPS and the tokens to get there to Indianapolis. Guys, you're going to be seeing a lot of good football. This is probably one of the biggest games you're going to see. One of the things I do want to say, though, going back to, are we going to take Heisman Mendoza, the veteran quarterback, over a young Julian Sayon? I'm going to lean with Heisman Mendoza, the one who's been here and done more and seen more. But again, you have Matt Patricia, who's seen a lot too. He's going to get his defensive guys. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be mano on mano. The strength lifting coach that I follow at Indiana for he just posted the Kobe thing. He's like, he was there. He's like, why are you crying? The job's not finished. We got to get going. They're locked in. Cignetti's locked in. They got film. There's people watching that. I'm getting chills down my spine. There's people. Now, I'm not going to say there were stallions on the side, but there was people for Indiana there watching and scouting that Michigan team and seeing what they did at Ohio State, and they're also seeing how Ohio State handled that situation. I also want to mention this. Ohio State hosted Penn State, so this is their biggest challenge. Again, I want to bring that back up. They didn't have to go to Happy Valley. A lot of people criticize Indiana for that. You know what? Happy Valley is a crazy place to go to, especially when you have a target on your back like Indiana. Penn State went to Ohio State. They had their fans. Again, this is the biggest game. I'm not even counting Michigan. Michigan, we knew Ohio State could have took care of it. It helps them. But this defense, I mean, this is comparing apples to oranges, ladies and gents.
One thing you just reminded me of, that was a beautiful comparison, Coach Drew, between the RPO game, the NFL, and the college game because of the difference in the hash marks. I know some of the fans don't realize that, but look up the difference in the spacing of the field. The one thing that's been overlooked on Indiana and all the breakdowns that I've seen is that Indiana has the most underrated linebacker group in America with Aiden Fisher, Isaiah Bones-Jones, Relarja Hardy, and the rest of them. These guys are not just run stoppers. These guys do cover pass, and they don't get confused by any kind of misdirection. I watched Georgia highlights from over the weekend, and they run all this spin cycle, single wing type stuff. You guys don't know what single wing is, that's fine. But when the quarterback turns around and spins to fake to multiple players, that's a old 90s trick. Indiana would not be fooled by that. They're not fooled. Indiana's linebackers are not fooled by misdirection at all. Bones-Jones, Hardy, and team captain Aiden Fisher, one of my favorite Hoosiers, will be ready to go. Don't sleep on the Hoosier linebackers, but obviously don't sleep on the monster athletes that Ohio State has and their monster coaching staff. Like I said, I think that Matt Patricia is the best assistant in the country, not to throw shade at anybody else in this equation. What a game, Coach Drew. College football games don't get more fun than this before the national championship game, in my opinion. Some people said to me, some Notre Dame fans said, who cares about the conference championship game? I guarantee Indiana fans care. Indiana hasn't won an outright conference championship since 1945. They had a share of it in 1967 when they went to the Rose Bowl. We care about a chance, Indiana fans do, to play Ohio State. And I'll tell you this, the best coach in the country, Ryan Day, he ain't sleeping on this game either. This is a point of pride. This is an ultimate pissing contest. I mean that in the best way possible. Said he wants a shot at the Buckeyes and back and forth. And the Ohio State Buckeyes, they want that Big Ten title, I promise you, because they want to hang it in the locker room, in the stadium, next to the multitudes of other titles that they have. So this is college football at its best.
Again, people say it all the time, it's Ohio State against the world. Well, now you have an invader. It's called Indiana.
No
Do you want to cover North Texas versus Tulane real quick before we get into the BYU Mormons against Texas Tech and the Red Raiders?
Yes, football fans, this is conference championship weekend on Midwest Blitz, so we're going to get outside the Big Ten a little bit. We're going to talk about the American Conference Championship game between number 24, North Texas, and number 22, Tulane. This is basically a de facto playing game for the college football playoff, so I'm going to tell you what to watch when you turn it on Friday. I believe this game's on Friday, Coach Drew.
That's correct.
North
Both games
Texas,
that are the smaller games are on Friday. Sorry not to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you're good. So North Texas has one of the statistically best passing games in the country with quarterback Drew Mestermeyer. He's got 3,800 plus passing yards this year. And Tulane, the Green Wave versus the Mean Green. Confusing, Coach Drew, right? North Texas Mean Green, named after Mean Joe Green, Pittsburgh Steeler Hall of Famer. Tulane has the number 12 passing defense, not in the country, in the American Conference. Now, Tulane has had a good run defense, and Tulane has been a bend but don't break defense, but they've given up a lot of passing yards. So the cross section here that you need to understand is that North Texas not only throws the ball well, they run the ball well, and they finish well in the red zone, which a lot of teams that throw for 3,800 plus yards in a year get down the red zone and stall out and kick field goals. The North Texas Mean Green are the exception to that rule. Linebacker Ethan Wesley for the Mean Green has 97 tackles this year. They've got a solid defense. Tulane's had a great year, but I think their run is over here. Although Tulane quarterback Jake Retzlaff has had a fantastic year, but North Texas's red zone offense and passing game are going to overtake Tulane. Tulane's plus 2.5. If you're a gambling man, drop the points from North Texas. They're going to cover and they're going to win this game. They're going to be in the college football playoff. You heard it here first if you didn't hear it somewhere else. It's just the combination of their ability to pass the ball and then finish in the red zone and create big plays in the passing game and run game. Coach Drew, what's your favorite offense to run on the college football video game?
That would be the air raid.
So North Texas runs the air raid in their passing concepts, but incorporates other better running concepts in. So they're kind of the best of both worlds. North Texas is a really fun team to watch. They also have a really good defensive coordinator. I've watched them a few times this year. They don't get fooled very often for big plays. So I got the Mean Green winning this one, Coach Drew, in the American Conference, going to the college football playoff game.
You know, beginning of the year, and I'm a Texas fan, and they started off in the AP poll, which doesn't matter for two shits. They were number one. If somebody would have told me North Texas is making the college football playoff and Texas isn't, I would say, you're dumb. Like, I would probably say some unnice words. I'd probably be like, I'll buy you a house at that point. But hey, this is the special thing for NIL and the special things. All the coaches for these teams are basically vacant and have gone on to bigger programs. That's something to watch for. Unfortunately, there is some ramifications. Some teams, like Ole Miss, is letting Charlie Weiss, I believe, Jr., I just want to mention that, run the offense for Ole Miss. And then he's going and packing his bags to Louisa State University. So, again, Tulane, North Texas. This is interesting. Do you think North Texas is going to let Tulane wear their special Hurricane Katrina colors? Because, hell, this is North Texas, not Northwestern. I mean, Tulane has to channel the same hate that they had that week to come in and beat North Texas. North Texas quarterback is a dog. 29 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I mean, he spreads the ball. I mean, am I playing him in real life? Like, am I playing him on a college football game? Like, it's almost like one of those things where I'm like playing with my controller, but I'm actually doing something in real life with it. I do think, well, okay, here's something. Home field advantage in New Orleans. Can North Texas take care of it at 7 p.m.?
New Orleans.
Which, they're looking at some interesting stuff down there. I do think North Texas does come in there, does the job. This is a great story for North Texas. North Texas hasn't been really relevant for a long time. It's funny, a lot of these schools. It's interesting, though, again, before we move on to the next game, I love how these smaller teams in the ACC are all going to the SEC. It's almost like the minor league for coaching for the SEC coaches.
Yeah, coaching staff turnover could play a factor here in the AAC, American Conference Championship game, but it's really hard to predict all that. But yeah, like you said, the ACC, who's going to struggle to get a team in, we're going to talk about that conference championship game here in a minute. The ACC is getting all their coaches ripped to the SEC, 3 of them so far this offseason. You want to go to BYU versus Texas Tech, the Red Raiders.
Yes. So BYU, we're looking at it right here. BYU is 11. They did not make the initial cut that we needed to see them today on Tuesday for Sunday. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, they have an opportunity to get their lick back against the Red Raiders. Previous in the season, we talked about how the Red Raiders are going to demolish BYU. And man, we did not miss that beat. They're opening 12.5 favorites against BYU in a championship game. This is one of the biggest spreads besides JMU, which we're not going to really get too much into about their spread. 3-touchdown dog, that's insane. But this is the big P4 conference that we're looking at with the 12.5. Now, let's talk about it. What's at stake for Texas Tech before Big Nick breaks it down? Texas Tech is 4. They're in the cut for a bye. They're playing for a bye. So they're not going to just play BYU for fun. No, they're going to play so they don't have to play at home and they get that bye and they can take a whole week's rest. BYU's playing to get into the tournament. If they upset Texas Tech, this is bad news for Notre Dame. So, regardless of what I analytically say, I'm rooting for Texas Tech. Go ahead, Nick.
So number 11 BYU, as Coach Drew said, comes in to play the Texas Tech Red Raiders in the Big 12 championship game, a 12.5-point underdog. So the problem for BYU in this game, despite how much I like how they played this year, this is a team, Coach Drew, that's not a great team, that has played great, has maximized talent, has maximized strategy, maximized their opportunities. The Red Raiders defensive line, if you haven't seen them, all that oil money that got pumped into the Red Raiders this year has paid off. The defensive line, I've been saying all year from the first series that I watched them, Coach Drew, I said that Texas Tech Red Raider defensive line is a brick wall. And then I was listening to somebody earlier, a national analyst, and they said, this D-line is a brick wall. So, I mean, it was the ultimate visualization. You can't run right at Texas Tech at all. And they're led on the defense by Jacob Rodriguez, All-American badass at linebacker, Heisman candidate. They've been running him at fullback, trying to get him in the Heisman room here in New York here in a few weeks. Probably deserves to be there. I love to see a defensive guy get into the Heisman room, even if he doesn't win the whole thing, Coach Drew. And Baron Morton at quarterback for Texas Tech. He was injured. He's back, appears to be healthy. Baron Morton in this Red Raider offense, specifically passing game wise, all their receivers know where to be. It kind of reminds me of Indiana. I don't know if Indiana, they don't have the talent that Ohio State has. Ohio State has the best talent in the country at wide receiver, best players. But execution wise, the Red Raiders remind me of Indiana where, dude, quarterback lets ball go, receiver knows where ball's going. It's like that sixth sense type of connection. Even when Baron Morton got knocked out of a game earlier in the year, I think against Utah, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. You guys always do. We appreciate that. The backup quarterback came in and he was dotting up wide receivers on back shoulder fades, over the shoulder catches, all this stuff. The passing game of Texas Tech is elite. The defense of Texas Tech is elite. I expect Texas Tech to win this game. I don't think BYU can compete with them at the line of scrimmage, although Bear Bachmeier, freshman quarterback for BYU, will end up being a legend for the Cougars, but he carries a lot of their running game, Coach Drew. I don't think that you're going to be able to run the ball up the middle with running backs against Texas Tech's brick wall defensive line. Bachmeier can't carry this whole offense on his back. I just think they're outmatched in this game. BYU's going to get knocked out as I look over here at the big board. Texas Tech is going to stay in there and probably get a bye as we project the final college football playoff rankings. But I love BYU. They've had a great season, but the Big 12 will end up being a one-bid league.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, too, with Texas Tech, I do want to say their quarterback, Morton, will be a quarterback on Sunday. Now, he may not be a starter to start with, as we might be transitioning to a different style of football where the rookies get to sit back. We're talking about that, too. We're going to talk about that more in the offseason, the evolution of the quarterback and different perspectives, because some of you guys want to know. That also ties back to our Ohio State conversation. But bringing it back here, Rodriguez does have over 100 tackles. Reminds me a lot of Manti Te'o. He did get a free Wildcat position run where he got to run in and rush for touchdowns the other day. They're trying to stat pad him. I get it. Let's have fun. College football is supposed to be fun. On the other side, BYU's head coach is not going anywhere. He declined to go to Penn State as Penn State fails to secure another coach with an at-large bid. What does this look like and what does this mean too? Well, I failed to mention if BYU loses, they're done. That now sneaks and puts Miami at that 11 seed, waiting for something to happen. And what's that? That leads us to our next game, Alabama at Georgia, in the hyped-up game on ESPN, ABC, Disney, Mickey Mouse, Disneyland, how many more things, Hulu, everything, SEC, big time. That's not why you're here. We're the Midwest Blitz.
Donald Duck, Minnie Mouse, all these things. We're telling you who's getting into the playoff here if you're watching this. Bama against Georgia, the rematch. Who wins and why? All right, Coach Drew, there's two theories I thought about coming into this. We talked about this going into the episode. Now, when you get a rematch in a conference championship game, especially in the SEC, I think, now maybe my brain's in the past in the 4-team playoff format, but does the team that needs it more win, meaning the underrated team, or is it too hard to beat the same team twice in one season? Bama being Georgia's only loss this year. And in Gunnar Stockton, I trust right now. Bama's run game has been inconsistent throughout the year. They lit Georgia up in the first half of that game and then still hung on to win in the second half. I'm not sure if they scored in the second half of that game, Coach Drew, behind the formidable Crimson Tide passing game led by head coach Kalen DeBoer and Ty Simpson quarterback. But I don't know that Bama can come in again and surprise you and out scheme you. If you're Kirby Smart, one of the best coaches in the game that we didn't mention. We were talking about Cignetti and Ryan Day earlier. One of the two remaining coaches that has a national championship under his belt in all of the game. I think the Georgia coaching staff, which is awesome, is going to come in and figure out a way to control tempo, at least in this game, because Bama does not run the ball that well. Bama didn't run the ball well against Wisconsin in the pre-conference early in the year. I think the Georgia defense is really good. Bama's defense is good also, but Kirby's a dog.
No.
I got Kirby Smart pulling this one out. I think Bama is knocked out, which now, as we just said, if we're looking at the current standings, Bama at 10, BYU at 11, Miami at 12. We've eliminated Bama. We've eliminated BYU. That helps Miami jump up as an at-large bid because they're not in the ACC championship game. So now we're looking to see who wins the ACC Atlantic Coast Conference title game, and then who wins the American and who wins the Sun Belt, which will be JMU. So that gives you a pretty good picture of how this playoff bracket's going to shake out. We're not going to tell you the exact seeds. We don't know how the committee is going to decide that. But you're not going to have Bama. You're not going to have BYU.
Well, I will say this again with Alabama, Georgia. They are playing in Georgia. That would be on ABC Mickey Mouse at 3:00. So here's the thing: this game, they're favoring the Georgia Bulldogs. What's that coming down the track? As Pat McAfee would say, they're -2.5. Here's the thing: Georgia is gonna want to kick Alabama's ass. Why? Because A, it's a rivalry. Because they want to secure their spot. Ohio State versus Indiana. The loser of this game, whether it's Ohio State or Indiana, the team that loses will be the lowest, as long as it's close, will be lowest seed 4. Texas Tech we expect to win. They already are 4, so they'll be mixed for 2 or 3. Now we're looking at Georgia. Georgia wants a bye. Why do you want to play an extra game? You're already playing a conference game. You want to play it. Alabama, I will say this. Alabama's 9. They're not going to slide to 10 because they can't, because they've already been established 9 today. But maybe they want to slide up to 8. Maybe, here's this one. They don't get top 4, but now you host a home game? That's a huge switch right there. That's a huge switch. We got to talk about that. Now, Alabama loses. I have to give purpose to Alabama playing this game because a lot of people are going to say that Alabama should not play Georgia because they have a chance to get eliminated. Well, I'm trying to get in the positive. Okay, they won't get a bye. Okay, they might get a chance. They might let them be like, okay, well, you won your conference. Here is a playoff game, or where you host a playoff game. There's a possibility for that. That's huge, right? We saw SEC teams go to Midwest areas, not do well, but hosting them, they'll do better. We'll see how that pans out. Another thing, too, like you said, we want to mention this. Alabama loses, they're out. Miami's going to get in. That's our prediction here. Miami's going to sneak in because Georgia's going to win. So if you're following us, we got Georgia winning and Texas Tech. So BYU and Alabama will be eliminated from the college football playoffs if that goes that way.
So this narrative that conference championship games don't matter, which is kind of what I expected when they expanded the playoff last year, is really not coming to fruition because the 2 best conferences and the 2 conferences that have the most pull as far as TV goes, which are the Big Ten and the SEC, those games, okay, the Ohio State Indiana game is not that meaningful, I guess, for seeding, but the SEC game certainly is for Alabama. And like you said, if Georgia loses, they don't get a bye. So conference championship games do matter. Now, I guess the ACC conference championship game, some people say that doesn't matter. Well, hell yeah, it does. If Virginia wins, they get in. And if they don't, then no ACC team gets in. So in the Big 12 conference championship game also, all these conference championship games still matter for seeding. So I think that narrative has kind of been beat up, Coach Drew. What do you think?
Yeah, I hope we debunked it. And I'm sorry if I offended you guys with my joke. Again, if you could read the comments, I was just saying how ridiculous. These conferences do matter. And for all the Notre Dame fans, I was one of the Notre Dame fans when COVID happened and Notre Dame got invited to play in possibly the ACC championship. It's a little blurry. Can't remember. I hate that time of life when the COVID season happened.
Yeah.
But we're like, hey, that's fun. We could play in a conference championship and prove all you guys wrong. I don't think we played in it or whatever, but it was still a fun idea. So these people, we'll cover that in the off season. Do you want to go to Doomsday?
Doomsday. Yes, I do, Coach Drew.
We
Doomsday.
have 17. Yep, I got it. We got
Good.
17 Virginia, who's looking to come in and play and with the big boys. The ACC has literally, they had Clemson early in the season. SU snuck up after they beat Bama. Why we're here in this situation in the first place. They lost week 1. Virginia has been doing well, but a lot of them got beat up. Miami at large bitch because they lost 2 games in conference unranked teams, which is why they're in their situation now. Let's state the facts. They also now play, the Virginia's playing against us, and then Duke got in there with 5 losses. Nick, tell them what happens if Duke wins.
If Duke wins, there will not be an Atlantic Coast Conference team in this college football playoff. I promise you. Write it down, take a picture, come back and tell me if I'm wrong. Some of you will tell me I'm wrong before it happens, which we appreciate, because then we get to come back and talk about it later. The Duke Blue Devils, though, at 7-5 going into this conference championship game, are a dangerous team. I mean, they had Illinois earlier in the year on the ropes. Illinois was a very quality team if you guys haven't watched them, because of the arm of quarterback Darian Mensah, who was an absolute stud. This guy's got NFL written all over him. He makes all the throws. He can throw on the run. The problem for Duke coming into this as a 3.5-point underdog is that their run game is not good. Their offensive line does not block the run game well. Their running backs don't produce in the run game very well. And Virginia is very well-rounded in this respect. They've got a solid defensive front. They've got a solid defense overall. They've got a solid offense and a run game pass balance on offense. Duke is a one-trick pony in terms of passing game and stopping the run defensively, but they give up a lot of deep passes and a lot of passing productions on the defensive side of the football due to the Duke Blue Devils. Virginia is going to the college football playoff. That's my prediction, Coach Drew, despite how good Darian Mensah is. Now, if you haven't seen this kid throw the ball, he can really sling it, but I just don't think that Duke is going to be able to stand up to Virginia's overall attack. Plus, at this point in the year, Virginia has scouted Duke enough that they're going to figure out ways to get pressure on Mensah in third down situations. So I got Virginia making the college football playoff.
I do too. Duke, what a silly doomsday situation. You know, as a Notre Dame
Crazy.
fan, I always tell them, I'm like, Miami's gonna get into the playoffs, but you're not gonna get in with the championship either, jackass. You know, and I lean into that one. I got Miami friends. We all have fun. They tell me I'm a dumbass because we don't have a conference, but I definitely want to see Duke upset Virginia just for shits and giggles because it's Doomsday and I've been talking about this for the last 3 weeks. And then I also want everybody to then apologize to Nick because you're going to roast him and say, Duke's going to make it. They have to have an AA or ACC because that's what they said in the bylaws. And Nick, being our business person over here at the Midwest Blitz, read the bylaws and said, taking the 5 best conference champions, not these are the 4+1.
Yeah, I mean, but 4+1, Coach Drew, in defense of anyone who thought that is a terminology that we heard a lot in the mainstream sports media was, the 4+1. Because I think, going back to what I said a minute ago, if you guys are watching the clip, you missed it, but the assumption was the 4 Power 4 conferences, Big 10, SEC, Big 12, ACC, that those would be the 4 highest ranked conference champions. But in the situation that Miami has where they didn't get into the ACC championship game, they are the best team in the ACC, but they don't qualify because they don't have the best conference record. This almost comes back to like NFL, who gets a wild card game. It's based off of division standings, not based off of overall record. You guys can look that up on your own, but this has made it very interesting going into conference championship weekend. Me and Coach Drew just call it championship weekend. Dude, it's all on the table for a lot of these teams. These games are going to be fun to watch on Friday and on Saturday. Coach Drew, you and I are going to host a live chat party on the Rate Game app, aren't we?
Yes, we are. We might even go live on TikTok, or we might even go live on YouTube. We're still working out the things and how to get that set up and situated. We've done lives on TikTok, but we might want to get the YouTube going while we do the rate game. We're going to do some combos.
We'll definitely be live during the Big Ten Championship game, the best game of the season so far between Indiana and Ohio State. I think that game's going to be epic. You guys might be talking to Coach Drew a little more than you're talking to me because I'm a big Indiana fan. I'll be on pins and needles, but we will be in there in the chat. We'll be looking for our friends that we've been talking to, hopefully make some new friends in there. I think Virginia's making the college football playoff, but this ACC championship game will be fun to watch, no doubt.
Absolutely. It looks like we've made it through the part of the Midwest goodbye. All right, guys, and we are at the part of the Midwest goodbye. So, besides championship weekend, Coach Drew's going to be watching Bears-Packers and a renewed rival. I just want to mention that. That's some Midwest stuff. We don't cover the NFL, but that's why I'm wearing my Caleb Williams jersey. He did go to USC, so that's a Big Ten school now. Eat it, okay? Also, the Pope's favorite team is the Bears. So if you believe in redemption, because he did go to USC, his sins have been forgiven by coming to the city to play for the Bears. So take that one, all you weird freaks who hate him because he went to USC. You know what? Let me tell you a secret. But not a lot of people know this, but my other team I like is Texas. He played at Oklahoma. I hated him there. Then he went to USC and I hated him there. So the fact that he went to the Bears and then I have to like this guy, man, I felt like Will Ferrell. I was like, I'm not going to call him dad, or in this case, I'm not going to call him my starting quarterback, even though he was a first overall pick. So I thought that was going to be fun. It's going to be a fun weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, football.
So Coach Drew and I were just revisiting the SEC championship game, and Coach Drew was reading something from CBS Sports where they were questioning whether Bama, where they're currently ranked towards the bottom of the top 12, should be penalized for losing the SEC championship game. And me and Drew thought about it like this. If you're playing cards and you have a chance to jump up, for Bama, jumping up would be if they win, they would get to host a home game. If Bama has a chance to gain an advantage, they also have to have a chance to lose one, being that they're at the bottom. As opposed to Indiana and Ohio State, who are at the very top. They could still drop down some, but Indiana and Ohio State's not going to get kicked out of the playoff. In fact, they'll probably still host a home game depending on the margin of victory in the game. But so Bama absolutely is at play to lose. And as Coach Drew pointed out earlier, they got smacked in the mouth up front by Florida State in that first game of the year on the offensive line. And that's a bad look. Continue to not run the ball well throughout the season. So Bama has showed an obvious deficiency, despite Ty Simpson being terrific, being a Heisman candidate. We're not taking that away from him, but if you want to really secure yourself, you should be like the Oregon Ducks. They had wide receivers injured, and they still continue to win because they could lean on a run game because Oregon is well-rounded offensively and defensively, whereas Bama is not well-rounded offensively. That's why they have 2 losses, especially their loss to Florida State, which in hindsight is pretty humiliating in terms of CFP resume. Not humiliating like they're not a really great football team. I'm not saying that, but they should not get a pass. But we all know that if Bama loses and they get bounced out, Nick Saban's going to go on and cry, and somebody else is going to go on and cry and defend them. But yeah, you can't participate in the hand of cards and have a chance to win. And then when you lose, go, oh, I'm kicked out of this card game? No, you have so many chips left to play. You have so many chips left to win, so many chips left to lose, and that's where Bama is right now. Just like Miami. Miami's on the outside looking in, probably if Bama wins. So are you going to keep Miami out at 2 losses when they beat Notre Dame, who's probably in? That would be pure favoritism on the brand name, which we don't appreciate here on the Midwest Blitz. Whether you're a Big Ten team, an SEC team, ACC, whatever.
Well, you also got Oregon, who's either going to play Tulane, North Texas, or JMU. Well, Coach Drew, can't they play Virginia? No, they're going to play the 5th worst. The 4th best conference champ, if they go with Virginia, would play Ole Miss. So Oregon hosts, they're in a good spot. They're not doing anything this weekend. Ole Miss is not playing the SEC. They get to play Virginia, or they get to play JMU, North Texas, or Tulane, right? So Ole Miss, consolation for not playing. Now, they did lose their head coach, okay? That's not part of the game, okay? You made the college football playoff, and the college football play. This isn't Squid Games where they're like, all right, well, we just eliminate your head coach. Now you got to play the rest of the games. Oklahoma gets to host the game. They're not playing in the SEC championship. Texas A&M loses to Texas, so you don't have to play in the SEC championship. Your consolation prize, you don't get a first-round bye, but you get to host. We have 1, 2, 3 SEC hosting and 1 Big Ten all the way in the West Coast. And whoever goes to the West Coast is going to be a smaller school. It's not going to be any of these SEC schools. Let's put on our thinking cap and investigate that, you jackasses. You guys are complaining about Ohio State, Indiana, Notre Dame, Miami. You guys, this is all smoke screens. This is kind of like going to a poker table and you're trying to tell me, look at Notre Dame shouldn't be in there. Notre Dame shouldn't be in there. Really, jackass? You got 3 to 4 teams that are all hosting. Why is all the SEC teams hosting?
The only people I hear complaining about Notre Dame are Miami fans, which I can appreciate that because you beat them head to head.
Catholics versus convicts type
and
shit.
SEC people. I don't hear any Big Ten people complaining about Notre Dame. Do you, Coach Drew? I don't see that. I don't hear any Big 12 people complaining. I don't hear Utah fans, BYU fans. I don't hear them complaining.
Well, the commissioner did back BYU up, but yes, not the fans.
The sense of entitlement is coming from one direction, and that's SEC fans. They think that half the field should be SEC, regardless of having 3 losses. And again, like last year with Bama, if Bama wins against Georgia, they deserve to be in. But if Bama hadn't got their teeth kicked in against Florida State on line of scrimmage early in the year, they wouldn't be in this position. There's no reason that should have happened. To me, that's a coaching failure. And dude, Kalen DeBoer was the offensive coordinator at Indiana a few years ago. I'm an Indiana fan. If you guys have been watching Midwest Blitz, you know that. If you didn't know that, you know it now. I like Kalen DeBoer. I'm not rooting against Kalen DeBoer. I root more for and against coaches who I like than team colors. But, dude, you can't go down to Florida State and get dominated up front like they did and then expect for no repercussion when you end up being a 3-loss team. They should have won that game. I think Florida State got beat by Cal, who just fired their head coach. If I'm wrong about that, they got beat by another ACC team, and I'm talking about Florida State right now, who was terrible this year. So Florida State was not some juggernaut like they were back in the Deion Sanders days. Horrick Dunn, Chris Winkie, Stephen Davis at running back, all kinds of badasses back in the day of Florida State. That's not the Florida State team that Bama got beat by early in the year. So if you end up with 3 losses and you're Bama, even though 2 of them are to Georgia, you're at the bottom of the 12-team ranking. So when you lose again, you have to be penalized. If not, then it's anarchy and cats and dogs living together, no meaningful national champion, all these things we joke about here on the Midwest Blitz. But yeah, Bama deserves to get dinged. If Bama was ranked higher, they wouldn't be in danger of getting knocked out. Well, they're not ranked higher. Oklahoma jumped them because Oklahoma went into their house and beat them. So,
I mean, yeah, Texas lost to Florida. That's your fault. Oh, well, we played Ohio State at the beginning of the season. You were number 1. Me and Big Nick talked about this. The AP doesn't matter, but the AP gives us an idea where the CFP might think things will land. You were the number 1 team in the land. Yeah, you went to Ohio State, but if you're number 1, you win that game. So let's talk about that. Another thing we could talk about is the ACC did so bad that there's almost 6 teams from the SEC in here. Now I get it. The Big 12's angry because the Big 12, they lost some teams to the SEC, and you only have Texas Tech there. BYU, sorry, if BYU's better, then why is Texas Tech 13-point dogs? Nobody's talked about, I don't hear a lot of Texas Tech being national championships. I'm sorry, Texas Tech does have a loss this season. Guys, looking back at what's going on here, there's just so much smoke and mirrors. No one's happy. When on Sunday, when we do the show, or Monday morning, or wherever we figure out how to do the recap for this, because the college football playoff, it's going to be a snap around just like we're doing today. Everyone's going to be upset. Everyone's going to be in their feelings. Guess what? Since week 2, since Notre Dame lost, I said we're not making the college football playoffs. And guess what? If we don't make the college football playoffs, I'll shake the committee's hand, and I'll be like, all right, well, can I at least go to the Pop-Tart Bowl, everyone?
Look, who is in danger of getting knocked out that didn't lose a game that they were favored in? Let's go down the list. Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M. Texas A&M got beat by Texas, but that's one loss. Georgia, Texas Tech, Oregon, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Notre Dame lost 2, but has run the table since then. Against Notre Dame's 2 losses are 2 very good teams. Bama,
Top
BYU,
12.
Miami, Vandy, Utah. Utah struggled against Kansas State. That's what kind of lowered their ranking in terms of the committee. So everybody that is on the bubble, so to speak, has either lost 3 games or lost at least one game to somebody they shouldn't have lost to. And that's the way this should work. This it's not a beauty contest of, well, my team's got a rich tradition or my fan base is passionate. That's not what gets you in. That's not modern college football. It's just not. There's nobody, Coach Drew. Can you find an exception to what I'm saying? I mean, Miami's in a predicament that they're in because they lost to 2 unranked teams 2 out of 3 weeks. BYU got their ass kicked earlier in the year. That's why they're not ranked higher. Texas Tech is ranked where they are because Texas Tech looks, especially up front, but like I said, their wide receivers and quarterback are very legit. Texas Tech looks and performs, what do they call it, strength of record? They look like a playoff team. BYU has maximized potential. I don't think they look like a playoff team. If they win their conference championship, they get to be in the playoff. I mean, nobody's getting cheated here. We're all playing by the same set of rules. And as an Indiana fan last year, I was told because Indiana's strength of schedule was not as good, they didn't deserve to be in. But Indiana beat the shit out of all those teams that were not very good. They were winning by 30, 40 points every game against that weaker competition. So Indiana earned their way in last year. I think Indiana's better this year than they were last year. That's why they're 12-0. Obviously, they won some tough road games. But there is no, oh, you get to lose to a bad team, or no, that's not what this is all about. That is the gauntlet. It is a play-in tournament from the start of the year. I mean, who here, even the SEC teams, who is getting screwed because they lost to 2 good teams? Notre Dame's not. Who's getting hosed? Yeah. I don't see it.
Yeah, and, looking through some posts that I was going to mention too in the podcast, I mean, there's another one that talks about Irish fan and Canes fans can agree on that if Alabama loses, get them the hell out.
Yeah, no doubt.
Can't lose to weak guys. Texas lost to Florida. Florida State beat Bama. Can't have those losses. Losses do matter. So that was fun.
Unless you're in the SEC. Look. All right, we've been blaming the SEC. Unless you're an Alabama fan, losses matter.
Yeah.
If you're an Alabama fan, you just think you're supposed to be in everywhere. It's going to be the Nick Saban effect on Alabama that was the Bobby Knight effect on my Indiana Hoosiers in basketball, which was, hey, we expected to win the Big Ten every other year, and we expected to make a tournament run every other year. And then when a new coach got in there, you want to fire the guy because he doesn't live up to the standards of an absolute legend and a unique situation in history. So you watch, though. We're going to get a lot of crybabies when Alabama loses this weekend. I promise you that.
Yeah, Bama's going to show us their resume. They're going to point it at like their homework. Why are we getting penalized? They're going to tell them. They're going to say some weak shit. Say we shouldn't have played in the college. We shouldn't have played in our conference. But they're going to tell us that they could have won the conference. They're going to tell us that. They're going to say it's a cakewalk. Emotions are going to be high. Feelings are going to be hurt. Welcome to the college football playoffs, ladies and gents.
It's a great time. It's a great time, Coach Drew. This is the best time of the year. We got holidays. I got my Christmas lights up in here. I mean, dang, beautiful.
Maybe we got to go to Costco to get the Christmas tree nachos. We can have holiday nachos.
Coach Drew, I'm already on top of that. We're going to have nachos. We're going to have beers here at the War Room.
It's the War Room.
Weekend, Coach Drew. What a beautiful championship weekend it's going to be here in the Midwest.
We're going to be breaking down film, RPOs.
At the War Room, breaking down RPOs. I'm going to drive Coach Drew nuts. He'll be happy to leave Sunday by the time I get done with him yakking his ear off about football. It's probably you guys feel right now if you've stayed this long at the end of the Midwest Blitz. But if you guys want to come over and eat nachos, Wilkinson nachos, top notch stuff.
Some of the best.
It is the best. If you want to come over, you want to meet us out downtown Indianapolis. If Indiana beats Ohio State, you hit us up on TikTok.
Socials, all the socials.
I'll buy you guys beer. You guys hit us up. We'll be downtown. I've saved a significant amount of Midwest Blitz cash for the party if Indiana beats Ohio State. No offense, Ohio State fans, but it's going to get
There's
lit.
enough. There's enough. Well, I think I can guarantee that there will be a lot of red at the game on Saturday.
Somebody, Coach Drew, was saying, it was somebody who was not an IU hater, and they were like, I expect a lot more Ohio State fans at the game. I'm like, why? It's in Indy. All us IU fans, we showed up and shelled out. We ponied up the cash to go up to Notre Dame and get our ass beat last year. You think we're not gluttons for punishment? We're going to be out there downtown on Saturday, downtown Indy.
That's because they think it's been luck that Indiana got there. No, it's the Crimson Shin who's been paying the money for everybody to play. There's a reason why.
Thank you, Mark Cuban. Thank you.
Yeah. There's a reason why the Kelly School of Business is one of the top, not only in the United States, but in the world to attend. We have money, baby. Indiana, great for taxes. Very balanced budget.
Touche, Coach Drew. That's a good place to end it, I think.
All right. Well, this is Coach Drew signing off.
Hey, we'll see you guys this weekend downtown Indy. It's going to be good.